Vivid verses.
The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nathan Cross's corner office, casting geometric shadows across the blueprints spread over his desk. He'd been at Riverside Architecture for 6 years, the last 2 as senior project lead, and he'd learned that the best designs emerged in these quiet hours before the rest of Portland woke up. His coffee sat untouched, cooling in its mug from Groundwork Cafe, while he traced revisions to the Hawthorne mixed-use development with a mechanical pencil. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Running late this morning. Can you grab me a latte from that place you go to?" He glanced at his watch. 7:47 a.m. She wouldn't be in until 9:30 at the earliest, given her typical interpretation of running late. Still, he typed back, "Sure. The usual? You're the best. Love you." Nathan set the phone down and returned to his blueprints. The Hawthorne project represented everything he'd been working toward, a chance to reshape part of the city's waterfront while preserving the industrial character that made it distinctive. The investors wanted glass and steel. The community board wanted brick and history. His job was finding the synthesis. By the time he'd marked up the third floor plans, his phone showed 8:15. He saved his work, locked his office, and headed downstairs. The walk to Groundwork took 12 minutes. Nathan had timed it once, not out of compulsion, but simple curiosity about the rhythm of his own routines. The barista, a woman named Sam with an undercut and a collection of vintage band pins on her apron, had his order ready before he reached the counter. Americano, double shot, and... She paused, hand hovering over the syrup bottles. "Vanilla latte, extra hot, without oat milk?" "You've got it." Claire's running late again. Sam's tone held no judgment, just friendly observation born from 6 months of similar mornings. "Traffic," Nathan said, which wasn't technically a lie since Claire had mentioned it once. Back at the office, he set Claire's latte on her desk, third cubicle in the administrative wing, and returned to his own space. The Hawthorne plans demanded his attention, but his mind kept snagging on smaller details. Claire's desk had been unusually tidy. She typically accumulated an archaeology of coffee cups and post-it notes throughout the week, clearing them only on Fridays. Today it looked practically sterile. He filed the observation away and lost himself in load-bearing calculations. Claire arrived at 10:20, breezing past his office with a wave and a mouthed thank you. Nathan nodded and returned to his work. They'd been together for 14 months, long enough to develop comfortable patterns, short enough that he still noticed when those patterns shifted. Lunch was supposed to be at 12:30, a standing Tuesday arrangement they'd maintained for the past 2 months. At 12:28, Claire appeared in his doorway. "Rain check on lunch." She leaned against the frame, her blonde hair pulled back in a style that looked effortlessly casual but probably required significant mirror time. "Amanda needs help with the Riverside contracts, and she's drowning." "No problem," Nathan said. "Want me to bring you something?" "You're sweet, but I'll probably just grab something from the break room." She disappeared before he could respond. Nathan ate at his desk, reviewing material specifications while working through a sandwich from the deli across the street. The bread was too dry, the mustard too heavy, but eating alone meant he could read without conversation, could process both information and food without the split focus that social meals demanded. At 2:30, his phone buzzed again. "Sorry about lunch. Make it up to you tonight? Dinner at my place?" He considered his evening. The Hawthorne presentation was Friday, 3 days out, but he was ahead of schedule. Missing one night of work wouldn't catastrophize his timeline. "What time?" 7? "I'll cook. See you then." Nathan returned to his blueprints, but part of his mind had already shifted to analyzing the patterns. Claire canceling lunch wasn't unusual. Their work schedules collided regularly. But something in the tenor of these interactions felt slightly off-key, like a building with imperceptibly uneven floors. Nothing you'd notice without a level, but present nonetheless. He made a mental note and continued working. Claire's apartment was in the Pearl District, a renovated warehouse conversion with exposed brick and ductwork that the developers had marketed as industrial chic. Nathan had helped her move in 8 months ago, had spent a weekend assembling furniture and hanging artwork while she supervised with wine and suggestions. He arrived at 7:15, accounting for the traffic on Burnside. Claire answered the door in jeans and a cashmere sweater, barefoot, her hair down. "Perfect timing," she said, kissing his cheek. "Wine's breathing, pasta's almost ready." The apartment smelled like garlic and basil. Jazz played from speaker on the bookshelf. Miles Davis, kind of blue, an album she'd started playing after he'd mentioned it was his favorite. The gesture had touched him when she'd first done it. Now he wondered if she actually enjoyed it or was simply curating an atmosphere. Stop it, he told himself. Not everything is a calculation. Dinner was good. Claire had developed a reliable rotation of 4 or 5 meals she could execute well, and tonight's linguine with white wine sauce landed in her top tier. They talked about work, her frustrations with Amanda's micromanagement style, his cautious optimism about the Hawthorne presentation. Normal conversation, easy and familiar. After dinner, they moved to the couch with the remainder of the wine. Claire tucked herself against his side, her head on his shoulder. "I was thinking," she said, "we should do something this weekend. Get out of the city for a day." "I've got the Hawthorne presentation Friday," Nathan said. "I'll probably need Saturday to decompress." "Right, I forgot." She traced patterns on his chest with one finger. "What about Sunday?" "Sunday works." "What were you thinking?" "Maybe the coast. We haven't been to Cannon Beach in forever." They'd been once, 6 months ago, for a long weekend that had been pleasant, but not particularly memorable. Nathan remembered tide pools and overpriced seafood, the wind coming off the ocean hard enough to make conversation difficult. "Sure," he said. "We can figure out the details later in the week." Claire shifted, tilting her face up to look at him. "You don't sound excited." "I am," he said, which was partially true. He appreciated the idea of time away from work, even if the specific destination didn't particularly move him. Just distracted by the presentation. You're always distracted by work. The comment landed with just enough weight to register as criticism, though her tone stayed light. Nathan ran through his mental catalog of their recent time together. Dinners, a movie last weekend, the standing lunch dates. They weren't falling apart at the seams, but maybe they were stretched thinner than he'd registered. "You're probably right," he acknowledged. "After Friday, I'll have more bandwidth." "Promise?" "Promise." She kissed him, and he kissed her back, and the conversation dissolved into the kind of physical intimacy that required no analysis. Later, lying in her bed with the streetlight filtering through the blinds, Nathan stared at the ceiling and tried to locate the source of his unease. Everything was fine. Claire was intelligent, attractive, generally pleasant to be around. They had compatible lifestyles and overlapping friend groups. On paper, they worked. But paper, Nathan knew from his profession, was just the blueprint. The actual structure revealed itself during construction. Wednesday proceeded with the mechanical efficiency of a well-designed system. Nathan arrived at the office at 6:30, refined the Hawthorne presentation, fielded emails from the investors team, and collaborated with his colleague Ryan on the structural engineering concerns. Lunch was another solo affair. Claire had a meeting with the executive team, and by 4 o'clock, Nathan felt confident enough in his preparation to call it an early day. His phone buzzed as he packed his messenger bag. "Drinks tonight with Amanda and some of her friends. You should come." Nathan paused. He'd met Amanda twice, found her pleasant but uninteresting. The kind of person who filled silence with words without particular regard for content. Her friends would likely fall along similar lines. "What time and where?" "Barley and Hops, 7:30. "I'll be there." He went home first, showered, changed into dark jeans and a button-down that Claire had once said made him look effortlessly put together. The compliment had felt genuine, though he'd noted that achieving effortless required specific effort. Barley and Hops occupied a corner space in the Slabtown district, all reclaimed wood and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that served craft cocktails with elaborate garnishes. Nathan arrived at 7:40 to find Claire already seated at a high top with 3 other women. "Nathan!" Claire waved him over, her smile bright and wine-assisted. "Everyone, this is my boyfriend Nathan. Nathan, this is Amanda, you've met, and this is Jessica and Rena." Handshakes and hellos circulated. Nathan ordered a beer from the rotating tap, a local IPA he'd had before and knew he could nurse for an hour without seeming antisocial. The conversation moved through familiar territory: work complaints, weekend plans, a discussion of a Netflix series Nathan hadn't watched. He contributed where appropriate, asked questions that demonstrated engagement without demanding he carry the discussion. It was a social dance he'd mastered years ago. Be present, be pleasant, don't dominate. An hour in, Jessica mentioned planning a birthday party for her husband. "We're thinking of doing something in our place," she said. "Nothing huge, maybe 20 people, probably a Saturday in March." "That sounds fun," Claire said. "We should definitely come." Nathan registered the presumptive we, but didn't comment. It was reasonable to assume they'd attend together. "I'll send you the details once we nailed down the date," Jessica said, then turned to Nathan. "Do you know Mark? Jessica's husband?" "I don't think so," Nathan said. "He's in tech. Works at Vertex Solutions doing something with cloud infrastructure that I absolutely do not understand." Jessica laughed. "But he's great at parties, terrible at planning them, which is why I'm handling this." The conversation continued. Nathan's beer diminished by careful degrees. Around 9, Amanda announced she had an early meeting and needed to head out. The group began the gradual dissolution that marked the end of social gatherings, bathroom trips, settling tabs, promises to text. Outside, Claire linked her arm through Nathan's as they walked toward where he'd parked. "That was nice," she said. "Thanks for coming." "Of course. I know they're not your usual crowd, but I appreciate you making the effort." Nathan considered this. His usual crowd consisted largely of other architects, a few college friends scattered across the country, and his sister Rachel in Seattle. He didn't maintain a large social network, had never felt the need. "They seem nice," he said, which was true enough. Claire stopped walking, tugged him to face her. "You're so diplomatic sometimes. It's okay to have opinions, you know. I have plenty of opinions. About buildings, sure, but about people." She trailed off, shook her head. "Never mind. I'm a little drunk." They resumed walking. Nathan unlocked his car, drove Claire back to her apartment, declined her invitation to come up because he had another early morning planned. She pouted but didn't push. "Good luck with your presentation prep tomorrow," she said, kissing him goodnight. "You're going to kill a Friday." "Thanks." He drove home through light traffic, his mind already shifting back to the Hawthorne project. The evening had been fine. Claire had been fine. Everything was fine. The word was starting to lose meaning. Thursday morning brought rain, the kind of persistent drizzle that characterized Portland's reputation. Nathan worked through lunch again, refining the presentation slides until they achieved the clarity he demanded from his architectural designs. Ryan stopped by around 2 to review the structural components one final time. "You're going to nail this," Ryan said, leaning back in his chair. "The investors will eat it up. I hope you're right. When have I been wrong about this stuff?" Ryan grinned. "Besides that one time with the Henderson Plaza, but we don't talk about that." They did talk about it briefly in the way colleagues revisited shared disasters to extract their educational value. Then Ryan left, and Nathan returned to his work. At 4:30, his phone buzzed. "Hey, remember I've got that thing tomorrow night?" Nathan scrolled back through their recent texts, found nothing about Friday plans. He checked his mental calendar. No, she definitely hadn't mentioned anything. What thing? The fundraiser for the Arts Council? I told you about it last week. He had an excellent memory, particularly for scheduling. Architecture required managing dozens of deadlines simultaneously, tracking dependencies and deliverables with precision. If Claire had mentioned a Friday fundraiser, he would remember. I don't think he did. But no worries, what time? Really? I definitely told you. It starts at 7. Nathan paused, phone in hand. He could scroll through their text to verify, but that felt petty. Easier to just accept the miscommunication and move on. My mistake. You'll have to tell me how it goes. The Hawthorne presentation is Friday, so I'll probably be wiped. Right, your presentation. Good luck. You're going to be amazing. He set the phone down, returned to his work, and didn't think about the exchange again until later that evening, when he was home and the day's focus had fragmented into post-work mental drift. Sitting at his kitchen table with leftover Thai food and his laptop, Nathan opened his messaging app and scrolled back through his conversations with Claire. He went back 8 days, reading every exchange. No mention of any fundraiser. He checked his email, thinking maybe she'd sent it there. Nothing. Nathan sat back, chopsticks suspended over his pad thai. People forgot things they'd said. It happened constantly. Memory was unreliable, subject to distortion and retrospective editing. The confident assertion that she'd definitely told him was likely a false memory, her brain filling in gaps and creating certainty where none existed. Still, the conviction in her message nagged at him. I definitely told you. Not, I thought I told you, or I meant to tell you, but a statement of absolute fact. He filed it away and finished his dinner. The Hawthorne presentation went better than expected. The investors asked pointed questions about the commercial space ratios, about the timeline, about the community board's concerns, and Nathan answered each with the kind of detailed confidence that came from thorough preparation. By noon, they'd shaken hands on moving forward with the design development phase. Ryan took him to lunch to celebrate. I told you, Ryan said, raising his beer. You made them believe in the vision. The numbers made them believe, Nathan corrected. I just presented them clearly. Same thing in this business. They ate burgers and talked about the next phases, about Ryan's ongoing struggle with a difficult client, about life in general. Nathan checked his phone periodically, but received nothing from Claire. She was probably busy preparing for her fundraiser. At home that evening, he changed into comfortable clothes and settled in with a book he'd been working through, A History of Urban Planning in American Cities. He made it through 2 chapters before his phone buzzed. How did it go? He texted back. Really well. They approved the design development phase. Knew you'd kill it. I'm at the fundraiser now. So boring. Wish you were here. How's the turnout? Pretty good. Maybe 60 people? Lots of the usual Arts Council crowd. They exchanged a few more messages, her complaining about the chicken being dry, describing the investors' questions, before she said she needed to go network and would text him later. Nathan returned to his book, but found his concentration had fractured. He read the same paragraph 3 times before giving up and switching to mindless scrolling through architecture blogs. Around 10, Claire called. Hey, she said. Her voice had the careful enunciation of someone managing their alcohol intake. Just leaving. Wanted to hear your voice. How was the rest of it? Fine. Raised some money. Made some connections. The usual. She paused. Can I come over? Nathan glanced around his apartment. It was clean, but not particularly welcoming. Functional furniture, minimal decoration, the space of someone who spent most of their waking hours elsewhere. Sure, he said. I'll leave the door unlocked. You're the best. She arrived 20 minutes later, smelling of wine and expensive perfume. They talked briefly about their respective evenings, then moved to his bedroom with the inevitability of established routine. Afterward, Claire fell asleep quickly, her breathing evening out into the soft rhythm of unconsciousness. Nathan lay awake, staring at his ceiling, his mind circling back to the fundraiser conversation. She'd said she told him last week. He'd checked their messages, found nothing. Either she'd told him in person and he'd completely forgotten, unlikely given his memory, or she'd simply assumed she'd told him and her brain had created a false record, or she'd never intended to tell him and was now revising history to deflect responsibility. The thought arrived with uncomfortable clarity. Nathan examined it from multiple angles, testing its logic for flaws. If Claire had genuinely forgotten to mention the fundraiser, the natural response would be acknowledgement. "Oh, sorry, I meant to tell you," or "I could have sworn I mentioned it." Instead, she'd stated definitively that she had told him, positioned his lack of memory as the problem. Gaslighting was a term people threw around too casually, Nathan knew, but its technical definition, manipulating someone into questioning their own memory and perception, seemed uncomfortably applicable. One instance proved nothing. Memory failures happened. He rolled over, closed his eyes, and eventually found sleep. Saturday morning, Claire made coffee in his kitchen, humming while she navigated his cabinets. Nathan emerged from the shower to find her scrolling through her phone, a mug steaming beside her. "Morning," she said, looking up. "I was thinking we could do brunch somewhere. There's that new place in the Alberta district everyone's talking about." "Sure," Nathan said. "Give me 20 minutes. They ended up at a restaurant called Provisions, where they waited 40 minutes for a table and then another 20 for food. The Eggs Benedict was excellent. The conversation was pleasant and undemanding. They talked about Claire's week, about whether they should finally take that weekend trip to Seattle to visit Nathan's sister, about a movie Claire wanted to see. Walking back to his car, Claire took his hand. "This is nice," she said. "We should do lazy Saturdays more often." "Agreed. I know you're always busy with work, but it's good to just be together, you know? Without all the stress and schedules." Nathan nodded, though he privately disagreed with her characterization of his schedule as unusually demanding. He worked hard, but not excessively. He maintained boundaries between his professional and personal life. If anything, Claire's social calendar, the drinks, the fundraisers, the various gatherings, consumed more evening hours than his work did. But pointing that out would accomplish nothing except starting an argument. So he simply squeezed her hand and suggested they catch a matinee of the movie she'd mentioned. Sunday's trip to Cannon Beach unfolded exactly as Nathan had predicted. Pleasant but unremarkable. They walked the beach, ate overpriced chowder, browsed the shops selling driftwood art and local honey. The conversation stayed safely in familiar territory, nothing deeper than shared observations about tide pools and seagulls. On the drive back, Claire fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window. Nathan drove in silence, watching the highway unspool before him, his mind drifting across the landscape of their relationship. 14 months, long enough to develop patterns, to understand each other's rhythms and preferences. Long enough to know this wasn't quite right, but not yet wrong enough to justify ending it. Except that framing was cowardice, wasn't it? Waiting for things to become definitively bad before taking action, rather than recognizing when they simply weren't good enough. He filed the thought away for later examination and focused on driving. Monday brought Nathan back into the comfortable structure of work. The Hawthorne project entered its next phase, which meant coordinating with engineers, material suppliers, and the community board. He lost himself in the details, in the satisfaction of watching a design evolve from concept to reality. Claire texted him Tuesday afternoon. "Lunch today?" "Can't. Meeting with the community board at 12:30. "You're always so busy." "Sorry." "Thursday?" "Sure." The exchange left him vaguely unsettled, though he couldn't articulate why. He pushed the feeling aside and prepared for his meeting. Thursday's lunch happened at a Vietnamese place near the office. They ordered pho and spring rolls, talked about work and weekend plans. Everything normal, everything fine. "Hey," Claire said, setting down her spoon. "So, I was thinking about Jessica's party. The one she mentioned last week." "Right," Nathan said. "She sent me the invite this morning. It's March 15th, which is a Saturday. You're free, right?" Nathan mentally checked his calendar. Nothing scheduled yet, though March would likely bring additional Hawthorne demands. "Should be. Great. I already told her we'd come." Claire smiled. "I figure we can make a night of it. Party, then maybe hit that cocktail bar near their place you liked." "I've never been to a cocktail bar near their place," Nathan said. "I don't know where they live." Claire's expression flickered. A micro-expression of annoyance quickly smoothed away. "Yes, you have. That place with the vintage arcade games? We went there after Amanda's birthday." Nathan had never been to a bar with vintage arcade games. He would absolutely remember that. "I don't think so. Nathan, we were definitely there. You had some whiskey drink with smoked something in it." He set down his chopsticks carefully. "Claire, I've never been to that bar. You might be thinking of someone else." "I'm not thinking of someone else." Her voice had acquired an edge. "Why would I make that up?" "I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm saying you're misremembering." "I'm not misremembering. You're the one who—" She stopped herself, took a breath. "You know what? Fine. Maybe I'm thinking of a different time. Whatever." The conversation moved on, but Nathan's mind stayed hooked on the exchange. Two possibilities. Either Claire had genuinely confused him with someone else, perhaps a previous boyfriend, or she was testing boundaries, seeing what she could get him out. Neither option was particularly appealing. That evening, Nathan sat in his apartment and pulled up their text history on his laptop. He went back to the beginning. Their first exchange 14 months ago, when Claire from the administrative department had messaged him about a missing invoice, and they'd ended up chatting about architecture and coffee preferences. He read through chronologically, looking for patterns. There, 3 months in, Claire had texted, "Can't believe you forgot about dinner with my parents tonight." He'd checked his calendar, found nothing. She'd insisted she'd told him 2 weeks prior. He'd apologized, scrambled to make it work, shown up to a tense dinner where he'd felt perpetually off balance. And there, 6 months in, she'd been upset that he'd made plans with Ryan on a night she'd clearly told him she wanted to go to a concert. He'd checked his calendar and messages, found no mention of any concert, but had canceled with Ryan anyway. And there, 8 months in, another instance of him supposedly forgetting something she'd told him, this time about a weekend trip she'd want to take. Nathan sat back, laptop screen casting pale light across his face. Individually, each incident could be explained as simple miscommunication. Memory was fallible. People forgot things. But the pattern was clear. And in every case, Claire's response was the same. Absolute certainty that she'd communicated something, positioning his lack of memory as the failure. He thought about the fundraiser, about the bar with arcade games he'd never visited, about all the small reality edits that had accumulated like sediment. The question wasn't whether Claire was gaslighting him. The question was whether she was doing it consciously or unconsciously, and ultimately, that distinction didn't matter much. Friday afternoon, Nathan was reviewing material specifications when his phone rang. Claire, calling instead of texting. "Hey," he answered. "Hey yourself. Listen, I know this is last minute, but can you come to drinks tonight? Some people from work are going to Barley and Hops again." Nathan glanced at his computer screen, at the work he'd planned to finish before calling it a day. "What time?" 7:30 like last time. "I'll try to make it." "Nathan." Her tone shifted, acquired a studied patience that set his teeth on edge. "I told you about this on Monday. Remember? I specifically said Friday night drinks." He pulled up their message history. Monday's conversation had covered lunch plans and a question about whether he'd seen her umbrella. Nothing about Friday drinks. You didn't mention it, he said calmly. Yes, I did. We talked about it when you came over for dinner Monday night. Nathan hadn't gone to Claire's apartment Monday night. He'd worked late, ordered Thai food to his office, gone home around 9. I wasn't at your place Monday, he said. Yes, you were. We had that pasta I make with the sun-dried tomatoes, and we watched that documentary about the architecture firm in Copenhagen. Nathan felt something crystallize in his chest. Not anger, but a cold, clear certainty. Claire, I wasn't there Monday night. I worked late and went home. No, she paused. Wait, was that last Monday or the Monday before? Neither. The last time I was at your apartment was Friday night, when I came over after work. Silence on the line. Then, well, I definitely told you about drinks tonight. Maybe it was in a text you didn't read carefully. I read all your texts carefully. Apparently not. Her voice had acquired a sharp quality. Look, I'm not going to argue about this. Can you come or not? Nathan looked at his computer screen, at the material specifications that suddenly seemed irrelevant. I'll be there. Thank you. Her tone softened. I know you're busy, but it means a lot when you make time for my friends. She hung up. Nathan sat motionless for 30 seconds, then navigated to his phone's settings and enabled message archiving. If this conversation was going where he thought it was going, he wanted records. The drinks gathering was smaller this time. Just Claire, Amanda, and 2 other women Nathan didn't know. He showed up at 7:45, ordered a beer, and engaged in conversation while his mind worked through calculations. Option 1, end it tonight. Clean break, no drama. Option 2, wait and gather more evidence, though for what purpose he wasn't certain. Option 3, confront Claire directly about the pattern, see if she acknowledged it. The third option felt like the fair play, though Nathan suspected it would accomplish nothing except giving her ammunition to paint him as paranoid or controlling. Around 9, Amanda mentioned she was thinking about getting a dog. You should talk to Nathan, Claire said, touching his arm. He knows all about dogs. He grew up with them, right? Nathan had never owned a dog. He'd grown up with 2 cats and a perpetually anxious hamster. No, he said simply. Claire's expression flickered. Really? I could have sworn you told me about your family's golden retriever. Never had one. Huh, my mistake. She took a sip of her wine, turned back to Amanda. Well, I think you'd be great with a dog. The conversation moved on. Nathan excused himself to the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror, and looked at his own reflection. His face betrayed nothing. He'd learned long ago to keep his reactions internal, to process before responding. The decision clicked into place with the finality of a door closing. He returned to the table, finished his beer, waited for a natural break in conversation. I should head out. Early morning tomorrow. I'll come with you, Claire said, standing. I'm pretty tired anyway. They said their goodbyes. Outside, Claire linked her arm through his again, the gesture that had once felt affectionate now seeming performative. Thanks for coming, she said. I know my friends aren't your favorite people. They're fine. You always say that. She laughed. It's like your default response when you don't want to tell me what you really think. They reached his car. Nathan unlocked it, turned to face her. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. Claire's expression shifted, wariness disguised as concern. That sounds serious. Remember Monday, when you said I forgot about the Friday drinks? Nathan, we already talked about this. You told me I was at your apartment Monday night, that we had pasta and watched a documentary. I might have gotten the day confused. And last week you insisted you told me about the fundraiser. I checked our messages. You never mentioned it. Claire pulled back slightly. So what? You're keeping receipts now? That's kind of weird, Nathan. And before that, the bar with arcade games I supposedly went to. The dinner with your parents I supposedly forgot about. He kept his voice level, conversational. There's a pattern of you not listening when I talk to you. Maybe. Claire crossed her arms. I don't know what you're trying to imply, but I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Nathan met her eyes. You're rewriting things that didn't happen and insisting they did. When I point out the inconsistencies, you either get defensive or try to make me doubt my memory. That is not. Claire stopped, recalibrated. Okay, so maybe I get some details mixed up sometimes. So what? That's normal. People misremember things. It's not misremembering if you're certain it happened, and I'm certain it didn't. So your memory is perfect and mine is flawed? Is that what you're saying? Nathan recognized the trap, engaged with the framing, and he'd spend the next hour defending himself against accusations of arrogance. I'm saying this isn't working. Silence. A car passed on the street behind them, headlights sweeping across Claire's face. You're breaking up with me because I mixed up some details about dinner plans? I'm ending this because I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly questioning my own perception of reality. That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. Claire's voice rose slightly. So, I made a mistake about which night you came over. That's not gaslighting or whatever you think it is. That's just normal human error. Okay, Nathan said. Okay, that's it. You're just going to... She stopped, seemed to realize that anger wasn't working. Nathan, come on. We've been together over a year. Don't throw that away over something this stupid. I'm not throwing it away. I'm recognizing that we're not compatible. Because I forgot a few details? Because you didn't forget. You're insisting things happened that didn't happen, and when I push back, you try to make me doubt myself. He kept his voice gentle but firm. I'm not angry about it. I'm just done. Claire stared at him, her expression cycling through emotions too quickly for him to track. Finally, she settled on something like wounded dignity. Fine. If that's how you want to be, fine. Don't call me when you realize you're making a mistake. I won't, Nathan said. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement. Nathan watched until she turned the corner, then got in his car and drove home. The apartment felt particularly quiet that night. Nathan sat on his couch with a glass of water. He didn't trust himself with anything stronger and examined his emotional state. Relief was the primary note, which told him everything he needed to know about the relationship's viability. There was some sadness, certainly the natural grief that came from closing a chapter. But underneath it all was a profound sense of correctness, like a building's structure finally aligning with its foundation. His phone buzzed around 11. Claire, I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've been through? He didn't respond. You know what? You're right. We're not compatible. I need someone who actually listens to me. Still no response. Fine. Be that way. I hope you're happy. Nathan set his phone face down and picked up his book. He read 3 chapters, absorbed approximately 60% of the content, and went to bed at midnight. The following Monday, Nathan arrived at work to find an email from Claire marked important. Against his better judgment, he opened it. Nathan, I've thought a lot about our conversation, and I think you owe me a real explanation. Saying we're not compatible is a cop-out. I deserve to know the actual reasons you're ending a 14-month relationship. If you're not willing to have an adult conversation about this, then I guess I know what kind of person you really are. See, Nathan read it twice, then archived it without responding. Engaging would only extend the conversation, give Claire more opportunities to reframe and manipulate. The clean break was already made. All that remained was maintaining it. Ryan stopped by his office around 10. You look tired, Ryan observed. Ended things with Claire on Friday. Shit. You okay? Yeah, actually, it needed to happen. Ryan nodded slowly. Want to get lunch and talk about it? No, but I appreciate the offer. Fair enough. I'm around if you change your mind. Nathan didn't change his mind. He worked through lunch, made significant progress on the Hawthorne project's engineering specifications, and left at 6 feeling more settled than he had in weeks. Tuesday brought another email from Claire, this one longer and more accusatory. Nathan skimmed the first paragraph. Something about him being emotionally unavailable and unable to handle a mature relationship before archiving it unread. Wednesday, she tried calling. He sent it to voicemail. Thursday, she texted, "We need to talk about dividing up our stuff." Nathan mentally inventoried what he might have at her apartment. A toothbrush, maybe an extra phone charger, possibly a book he'd left on her nightstand. Nothing worth retrieving. "Keep anything of mine that's at your place. I don't need it back." "That's it? You're not even going to see me one more time?" "No." "Wow. Okay. I guess I never really knew you." Nathan pocketed his phone and returned to his blueprints. The Hawthorne project's second phase was approaching critical deadlines, and he'd learned long ago that work provided excellent structure during personal turbulence. By the following Monday, 2 weeks post-breakup, the messages had stopped. Nathan settled back into the rhythm of solo life, rediscovering the simple pleasure of answering only to his own schedule and preferences. Ryan took him to lunch that Thursday, ostensibly to discuss a client question, but actually to check in. "You're doing okay," Ryan observed. "Better than okay, actually." "It was the right call," Nathan said. "Want to talk about what happened?" Nathan considered the question. He could explain the pattern, the gaslighting, the slow erosion of trust. But summarizing it felt both exhausting and unnecessary. "We weren't compatible," he said finally. "I saw where it was going and ended it." Ryan accepted this with a nod. "Well, for what it's worth, you seem more relaxed than you have in months." That evening, Nathan went to groundwork for his usual coffee. Sam greeted him with her familiar efficiency. "Just the one today?" she asked. "Just the one." She handed him his Americano, and he took it to a corner table where he could watch the street through the window. The coffee was exactly right. Strong, bitter, uncomplicated. He pulled out his book and read for an hour, interrupted only by his own thoughts and the occasional sip. Outside, Portland continued its evening routine. Commuters heading home, couples walking to dinner, the infrastructure of other people's lives moving forward according to their own designs. Nathan watched it all with the detached appreciation of an architect observing a well-planned system. His phone sat silent in his pocket. No messages demanding explanations. No calls requiring diplomatic deflection. No reality edits to parse and counter. Just clean, reliable silence. He finished his coffee, marked his page, and walked home through the February rain, unburdened and heading exactly where he intended to go.
Thanks for listening.